What's going on? This is Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, and from the Freak Show on 105.5 The Beat in Fort Myers, Flyin Brian is on the show. What's going on, man?
What's up, man? How are you, Hoppe?
I'm doing good, bro. So I see on your social media that you are always doing something. If you're doing comedy when it's open because COVID doesn't exist in Florida, to doing
That's
your
right.
morning show, to being a father of 4 kids, and you were busy prior to this interview, taking your kid to martial arts. How do you do it, man? Because you have kids that are younger. I see you have a daughter that's older. So how crazy is it being Brian?
Oh, dude, I'm telling you, my life is absolutely crazy. Yeah, I mean, just the fatherhood thing alone. It's 4 kids. I have a 17-year-old daughter. I have a 10-year-old son, and then I have these 2-year-old twins. And it is just, my life is all over the place. You know, the daughter, she's in competitive dance, and she's got, jobs and school and everything else. And my son, he's in martial arts, and I'm one of his coaches. And so I do that 6 classes a week. And then I have the twins that are 2 years old. And I mean, any 2-year-old will run you ragged, but 2 of them, they just, they kick your ass.
I believe that every parent that is there for their kids works hard, obviously, but there is something about fathers and mothers that work morning radio or morning TV and then have to parent an adult during the day. It seems like absolute chaos, because if you look at the pictures of someone like you or here in town, Mike Calta, man, you guys look so happy to be there and grateful, but man, sometimes you guys look tired.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely it's an early start. The morning show alone, already that's more than a full-time job, because it's the 4 hours that you're on the air, but then there's prep time, and there's stuff that you have to do after. There's a lot that goes into morning radio, just from talking to Calta. But yeah, I mean, that by itself is a full-time job, and then you add kids and family on top of it, and everything else. There's really not a lot of time to sleep. And even on the weekends when you think that I would have an opportunity to sleep, I'm still not sleeping, not even on the weekends, because they're up early. So, I'm up too. So it's cool though. Honestly, I mean, I love everything that I do. I love being a dad the most, but, morning radio has been a blessing. I've been doing it for a long time, and, I've been doing radio for, almost my whole life. It's crazy.
How did you begin? Did you begin in Fort Myers? How did it all begin for you?
It started, oddly enough, when I was 15 years old, and at the time I was bagging groceries at a grocery store in Connecticut, and I was living there, and this radio station came to the grocery store. This guy named Rick Tosh, and he was a weekend guy, and he was doing this live broadcast there, and I bugged him for the entire 2 hours that they were there. I wanted to know everything about radio, because I wanted to be in radio ever since I was a kid. It was something that I always wanted to do. And then when this guy came to the grocery store I was working at, I bugged him, and he said, look, just come down to the radio station. Maybe you could be an intern through your high school or whatever. And that's exactly what I did. And I remember I was there for a couple of weeks, and they had me putting stickers on CDs, stuff like that. And then it went from that to they had me board hopping, and I was getting paid part-time in very short order. And then I will never forget it. There was a guy that was supposed to do an overnight shift at the time, and he didn't show up, or he was not going to be able to show up. And they asked me if I could do it, and I did. And that was when I was first on the air at 15 years old, and I never ever looked back since. It was that ever since.
How often do you go back looking at your tapes of you in the beginning and just seeing how far you've come?
Oh man, yeah, they're awful. I do. I had tapes, because when I first started, it was literally you were recording on a cassette. And when I first started, and from there it went to various forms of recording your show all the way up to digital, the way that it is now. But yeah, I had them digitally transcribed years ago. I'm like, oh, these are going to be awesome. I'm going to play some of these back on my morning show one day. And then I heard a few of them. I'm like, there's no way that I'm going to ever let these see the light of day. Nobody's going to hear these. These are awful. I think that people are I think people in general are a lot more self-critical than anything else. But no, these are terrible by anybody's standards.
Yeah, I have these tapes. I did kind of like this show. I grew up on Opie and Anthony. I was a diehard Opie and Anthony fan. And in Yeah, dude, they're my heroes. I was just listening to a show from them from about 20 years ago, and it was on YouTube.
At AAF in Boston, I used to listen to them.
Yeah, dude, some of the things they said 20 years ago, oh my God. So in 2012, I graduated 12th grade and I went to a community college and I basically just snuck in. Like it was like where the program director did not care at all. Like he wasn't even there. He's like, do what you want. Now it's organized. It's beyond woke. But I was like the shock jock there playing like throwback hip hop and I had the worst speech impediment. And I have all my videos on private because I did I forget what website I was using because this was 2012. This is pre-Facebook Live. Anyway, bro, I'm talking about like I was ranting about things, nothing like sexist or racist, but I was just like just saying really mean things, and I have that all on private, bro. Like the world's nothing bad, but it's definitely like no one ever needs to see it. It's funny.
For sure. Nothing that'll get you canceled, but just something that you're not that proud of. I think that we all have a lot of those moments. I mean, especially, those of us that have been doing this for a while, like you've been doing this for a while and I've been doing this for a while and it's different. You can't, there's a lot of stuff that you can't get away with. Luckily, I can get away with quite a bit on our morning show. We're not racist or sexist or anything like that either, but I think that, I think that we use a lot of metaphor and innuendo and stuff like that to kind of drive the point home. But, we like to have fun and have a good time. I think that people get it, especially when it's tongue in cheek and when you're having fun with it. You're not making fun of anybody. That's another thing we don't do. We don't really like directly make fun of anybody.
I'll never forget. So I'm a fan of Kid Chris, who's now in Cincinnati, and I first interviewed him like 2.5 years ago, and he was talking about his co-host at the time, Thomas, his mom giving out like BJ's or whatever, and that night on the interview with Kid Chris, I brought that up, and he goes, "I didn't say that on air," and I went, "Yeah, you did," and he goes, "No, you think I said it?" He goes, "Shock jocks throw paint at the wall." He goes. And he said the quote of whatever he said. He goes, "When I talk about sex on air, I am the Picasso of painting it." And he was saying that like he's tricking the audience into thinking he's talking about it, but he's not actually saying that. And ever since then, that's how I approach when I'm on the bone on the weekend or helping out Calta, or that's how I approach doing my interviews is you can't say it directly, Brian, but you can sort of say it without saying it and no one can say anything.
That's the thing. And, people are smart enough to get it. Everybody understands what you're saying. And that's the thing. You don't need to hit them over the head with it, and have that overt, punchline that's right in your face. You can absolutely just allude to things and people understand it. And actually, a lot of the time, that's what's even funnier. It's funnier when you just allude to it and let them put it together in their head, because when they put it together in their head, the instant that they do, that's when it hits them and that's when it's funny.
So I've been in Tampa Bay for 6 years now, and I first began as a board op in 2015. I was working promotions at the Bone. I promise this won't go long. This is because of my ADHD, but I'm going to talk about how amazing Brittany is. So Brittany was a board op in the hallway at 102.5 The Bone. She was helping out with the Johnny B show, and then she was board opping and doing weekends on How 101.5, and I was next door, Hot's right next door to The Bone. And I was board opping like the best of Drew Garabo, and I didn't know the card numbers to put in best of to fill time. So one of his segments back in the day, it was called Hot Girl News, and it was news about how women, like celebrities and that, and one of his old co-hosts did it. But the segment was 9 minutes of just music, like sexual music, and I thought that was a cart. So I was trying to transition from the commercial into the cart, but the cart had something wrong with it. So I pressed the button and 9 minutes of Hot Girl News played over all the commercials. I'm panicking. I'm 21. I'm 2 months into the job. I go next door. Bro, I was having a panic attack. I don't know how Brittany fixed it, but within 1 minute, everything was fine. I always had respect for Brittany prior to that. But I've even told her, like, she saved my life. I wasn't allowed to board out for like another year or whatever, but that was when, like, Brittany's the OG, bro. Like, I don't even know what she did. She did a lot of things, like pressing all these buttons, but she literally saved the day for me.
Well, I think that the trick is that even she didn't know what she was doing. She was just pressing a lot of buttons and then hoping that something worked and something finally did. No, Brittany is great. She's a lot of fun. She's, the co-host on the Freak Show with me. And she really is. She's so funny. She has these great stories. She's a single lady, and she goes out. Her life is completely different from mine. Like she gets to go out all the time and, be single and stuff like that. I've already done that. And right now I got the family vibe going on, but it's great to hear that perspective, on a radio show, especially. I think it's great to be well-rounded. That's one of the things that I like about Calta. Calta has a little something of everybody, on that cast of characters on the show.
How did you hire Brittany? Now, was it through an all access post that she applied for? Did you reach out to her? What was the process?
I remember we had a program director at the time, this guy, Eric Rosado, who's now in Seattle, and he was our program director, and we were looking for, somebody to round out the show. We wanted a woman on the show, and so we were searching around. I think that he's the one that kind of stumbled across Brittany, and I think that he might have reached out to her, or maybe our night guy did, because Brittany actually used to intern for this radio station back in the day. She was an intern for our night guy. And so she's been around here before. Her hometown's not too far away from here. So Brittany's been around this area before. She's from Southwest Florida. It was just kind of, like a no-brainer. She had such a great personality. I remember meeting her during her interview. We had lunch or whatever with our program director and our operations manager. And she was just a lot of fun right off the bat. And I was like, yeah, this is somebody that we can definitely have some fun with.
Now, have you ever felt threatened that you're going to lose your show or that somebody would come in and replace you? Because you always hear these radio guys talk about if you go on a long vacation or a leave of absence, if some of them are mentally ill, which everyone in radio is mentally ill. Have you ever felt like a time where you wanted to go on like a break or something, but were afraid that somebody from like another market or somebody applying for the job would come in and replace you, and then it would be that person in Brittany?
I never actually had that, because luckily for me, I've been here for a real long time, and I've got, this heritage in the market, but, more importantly, and what's more important to them is that, we still have great ratings, and they're still making a lot of money off this show. Now, if we didn't have ratings and they weren't making money, it would be a completely different conversation. And yeah, I probably would, but I'm definitely not afraid, because we do really well here, and they're making a boatload of money off of our show, and we got, full commercial sets every single time. So yeah, I'm not worried about it now, but I'm not going to lie. There was a time in my career where I actually really did worry about that for good reason. I'm not going to mention his name, but I worked for a really unbalanced program director. He had some issues with drugs and alcohol, but he didn't make the greatest or most sound decisions. And even though we were doing really well at the time, I'd gone on vacation for a week, and about 2 days into my vacation, he decided that the morning show needed to be all women. And so he was going to use my co-host, and he was going to bring on like a couple other women for the show, and it was going to be an all-girl show. The idea for the name for the show, he was insisting, was going to be called the Chick Party. That was going to be the name of the show, and that right there. And I think he went with that for about a day. So my job was threatened for about a day, and then he changed his mind by the end of the week.
What's the vibe like working in Fort Myers?
I love it here. I've been, a bunch of different places. I started in Connecticut. I worked in Roanoke, Virginia, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Daytona Beach, Florida. I worked in Tampa, Florida for a while. So I've been around a bunch of different places. And I got to say that I like Fort Myers because it's really laid back. It's got like a really cool beach scene. If you want to go to the beach, that's really cool. There's a lot of great restaurants here, a lot of great people. The part that I like the best are the people. We've got some really great listeners here, and they really love, the product that we're putting out. And, I run into people all the time. One of the things about Fort Myers is, and this is growing all over the place, this isn't just Fort Myers, this is everywhere, is that there's these syndicated shows that are all over the place. And while those shows are great and all, they're not local, they're not in the area. It's not like you can run into them, when you're out and about. And, people run into us all the time. And so I see listeners every single day. And I thank people every single day for listening to the show.
I don't know if syndicated radio works. I interviewed BJ Shea from Seattle like 2 months ago, and he said the only show that ever really threatened radio was Howard. But he said the reason was like Howard was going on David Letterman and Jay Leno. And he's like, now,
right.
it doesn't really matter what show is being replaced because nobody is Howard, nobody is Elvis Duran, nobody is Breakfast Club, you know?
True. And, even some of those shows, are not doing that great in some markets, all depending, and you're right. Nobody's going to be Howard ever again. I mean, he was a star that transcended radio a long time ago. I mean, I think that as many people were aware of him as a television personality for being on so many talk shows, and he even had his own show for a while. And then there was a show that he had that was even before that on TBS or one of those for a long time, or TNT, something like that. Or no, it was some New York network that played everywhere. I forget the name of it now, but it was like Howard Stern was a television personality for a long time, as much as he was a radio personality. And so that it just made so much sense that anytime he came into another market for radio, he just blew up because everybody already knew who he was.
The funny part about him is if you listen to his old shows, he was just so smooth, man. Like he could be talking about the dirtiest thing, and you'll listen to other people that try to emulate him, and you just kind of feel gross, like you need to wash your hands after listening. But the thing with him was he was just so smooth about everything. He was like cool about it.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I mean, still to this day, he can draw out things out of his guests that nobody can. He lures them in. He hypnotizes his guests, somehow, and then he just gets them to admit and just say the most crazy things, ever on his show. And he has that power. I don't know. He's a great interviewer. He really is. I mean, of all the radio interviewers I've listened to over the years, he really is the best. I
know. I'm guessing you tried to emulate that because I know you are the go-to show for comics whenever they're in town.
Yeah. I think that maybe in the beginning of my career, I think that I wanted to be that shocking, guy that said things on the radio that made people go, "Oh, what do you say?" You know what I mean? I wanted to be that Howard Stern. I think that everybody goes through a Stern period that starts in radio, especially when I did. I mean, I started in radio in the early '90s, so I mean, it was like everybody wanted to be Howard Stern for sure. And I think that I kind of went through that phase a little bit, but then I think that as I grew and as I kind of aged a little bit and I kind of found my own groove. And I think that comedically is where really the show was leading to the whole time. I think that, we've always kind of leaned towards, the funny angle on everything. And we always stayed away from topics that were too heavy or political, certainly, or, anything like that. And so, I think that just kind of made sense for us. But yeah, we are definitely the show that all the comics gravitate towards. We have a couple comedy clubs in town, and then there's one in Port Charlotte that's not too far. And so we have the comics that come through all the time, and we get, some of the biggest comics in the country have been on the show, and we vibe with them very, very well because, what's so fun about our show and what I like about it is that we're not the kind of radio show that watches, 5 minutes of a comic's YouTube video. And then when he comes in the studio, we go, "Hey, so I heard you don't like airports." We're not that show. We just talk to them like normal people. They're funny people already. We pride ourselves on being able to flow with them pretty well and not get caught up in the whole, "Hey, they're a comedian, let's make them do punchlines" kind of thing. Now, it's going to happen anyway.
When it's all said and done, what do you want your legacy to be in radio?
I want to be seen as that guy that did have a funny show. I want to be seen as, the guy that got along with comedians really well, that, kind of, I like the heritage that I have here. I love the fact that I've been here for such a long time, and you don't really see that in radio, in a lot of markets. I mean, morning shows especially, they come and go, and oftentimes it's with zero warning, zero notice. You're there one day and you're gone the next, and the audience really doesn't care. But I think that when you've been in a market for a long time, I think the audience does care.
Now, for people that would want to check out your show, where can they hear it and why should they tune in?
You can stream it on the iHeartRadio app, and you can search for The Freak Show with Flyin Brian on iHeartRadio. I have a channel on there. And the reason people should listen is, if you like interviews with comics and you like funny stories and, people having a funny spin on those stories, then that's pretty much what we do. We like to have a good time. We don't like to have any kind of negative vibes, and, we just keep it positive, keep it moving, and keep people laughing.
Well, dude, it's been a lot of fun having you on the show. I respect everything you do because I can tell through the energy and vibe of your Facebook posts that you are working 24/7. And I'm kind of beginning to get there. I moved in with my girlfriend, so I'm cooking dinner, doing the dishes. So I'm more responsible now, and then I'm working more hours. So I try to like emulate the work ethic of guys like you and Mike Kelta, because those are the good people in radio.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I really do. And I listen to the phone. You know, we get the phone actually crystal clear down here, so I listen all the time. And I hear you doing your thing on there, man. And I'm a big fan, and I'm real happy for you. I'm glad that you're progressing and moving along, and you've come a long way, man. I really am happy for you.
Awesome. Thank you, bro.
All right, brother. Talk to you soon, Hoppe.
All right. Peace out, bro. All right. Thank you, Brian.
Bye-bye.